think it's just going to do a little countdown thing now. Your place looks super dope, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I like
I'm
it.
actually very glad. I was like worried we would have to reschedule again because the fucking fire alarm was going off in here for 20 minutes. And when my boyfriend and I were just sitting here and we're like, we can't smell smoke. We're not packing up 4 cats and taking them downstairs unless, because the firemen were downstairs and they were just wandering around and we were like, but yeah, it was going off for 20 minutes and I was just sitting here, please finish before I start this podcast.
My wife, right before we were about to get started, she came in and she goes, "Oh, I'm just going to do some vacuuming in your room." I was like, "I'm doing a podcast?" She's like, "Okay, I'll just go to the gym." So.
Nice.
Cool. All right, I'll do an intro. Even if you mess something up, don't worry about it because I'm going to go back and edit it anyways. So no stress. Don't worry about anything. It's the wonders of modern technology. Cool. Okay. All right, let's get started. Let's make sure that's working. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Lost and Founder. Today we have a superstar on the show, model, influencer extraordinaire, Laura Lux. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know it's New Year's Eve, but no crazy plans for the afternoon?
No, my boyfriend and I are staying at home.
Nice. For those of you that out there that don't know Laura, who are you?
So I am an Australian living in Texas. If you are from Australia, you might be familiar with an old magazine called Zoo Weekly. I used to be a Zoo Weekly cover girl columnist. I had a sex advice column that I wrote for them. I was Penthouse Pet of the Year in Australia. I was an internationally touring DJ. Somehow I have ended up in Austin, and now I just do OnlyFans.
There's a lot to unpack there, but whereabouts in Australia are you from?
I'm actually from the Flinders Ranges, which is about 4 or 5 hours north of Adelaide.
I spent the first half of my life in Australia and I have absolutely no sense of geography, but from what I know, it's a pretty beautiful region.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The town I spent most of my childhood in had a population of 50 people. So it was very rural. Kangaroos hopping down the main street. I was literally the stereotype. So
Do you tell people stories of like being a kangaroo wrangler or anything back in the country?
I've definitely convinced some Americans that we used to ride kangaroos to school. So
I tell people that I used to have one in my garage, and when I outgrew that one, we had to get a big one to take me to school. But they're fun stories. So, how long have you been in the US for?
I moved here in July 2015.
Okay.
So 7.5 years.
What brought you here? Was it just like more employment opportunities with what you do? Like obviously being an entrepreneur and being so well known as yourself, obviously the possibilities are endless here.
Yeah, it was when I first moved here, I was still DJing full time. That was what I really wanted to focus on. I actually really wanted to. So I was like living in Melbourne then, and I was coming over to LA to visit like fucking 5 times a year. And I'd made all these friends in the gay scene. I had all these gay guy friends, and I wanted to DJ in the gay clubs. That was my thing. I was like, I want to be a West Hollywood gay bar DJ. So I came over here with that dream and did that for a while, but didn't love it as much as I thought I would. So ended up going back into the straight scene DJing. So yeah, it was just to do music stuff.
Cool. And how obviously the transition from moving from everyone that you know in Australia to moving to the US, how did that affect your mental health? Was that an easy transition for you?
It was definitely tough. I've always told people if I didn't have the support system that I had in LA, I never would have survived there. Because I had, like I said, I was coming over to visit so often and I had so many friends. I had such an extensive network of friends who were so great and so willing to help me. I slept on an inflatable mattress in one of my friends' living rooms for the first couple of months while I had to get my shit together. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't have been able to handle it without that huge support network, which I'm so grateful for. And financially, it was really difficult as well. I think I'd been working in Melbourne. I was working at one of the strip clubs. I was DJing where I was earning like a really good wage. So I guess I just thought that I would go there and I would be able to make money easily. And it was a lot harder than I expected. It was a lot harder. She always wants to be on my lap.
What's her name?
It's Evie Wonder. She's blind.
Oh,
Yeah, she's my little best
cute.
friend. But yeah, so I definitely went into it, I think, with my expectations being a little skewed about how easy it was going to be. So I think for me, like in terms of like actually making the move, the hardest mental health aspect was the fear of failure. And I had got so in my own head at the thought of getting to LA and not being able to make it and having to come back to Australia with my tail between my legs. And I had built it up in my head that everyone would be laughing at me and being like, you're a failure. Oh my God, she had to come back to LA. And while trying to rationalize it to myself, at least I fucking tried. So that was probably the biggest mental health struggle with going over there.
I think that's a common theme even with me when I first moved to the US a while ago. It was like I struggled with, what if I did fail? What if everything that I built completely fucked up and I had to go back to Australia? Then there's this stigma. He failed. He couldn't make it in LA. Now he's back in Perth or he's back in Flinders, and it's completely understandable. And I think that's common, especially with a lot of the Australians that I've met over the years. Their biggest fear is, I don't want to go home. This is where I want to be.
Yeah, and it's such a big move to make.
Yeah. So prior to making this move, did you suffer from anxiety?
Oh yeah. I've definitely always been a very anxious person. So
what's your earliest memory of that?
In terms of anxiety, I'm not sure, but there was definitely some shit going on as young as like 12.
Okay.
Growing up.
Do you remember those memories?
Yeah, like growing up where I did, I was so isolated. And we moved out there when I was 7, away from the town that my mum and dad had grown up in, where we had lots of friends and we knew people. And then we moved out there when I was, I think, 7 or 8 from my dad's job. So we moved out because we lived closer to Adelaide in a small town, but still 40-minute drive from Adelaide. So then we moved out to the middle of fucking nowhere, to this town where everyone was related. Everyone had lived there generations. They were all super strict Catholic. My family wasn't religious. There was just a lot of, and we were outsiders. No one had moved to this place for so long. So I got very badly bullied. I didn't fit in. I didn't really have any friends for a lot of my childhood, or there just was, yeah, I think I still remember I had a diary when I was probably 12 years old, and I used to write in that like pretty graphic suicidal thoughts and saying if my parents didn't send me away to boarding school, I was going to stop eating until they sent me there. Just a lot of stuff like that, because I was so unhappy and so just not fitting in, and I wanted to be somewhere else. So that's probably my earliest memory, is just writing in this diary. And I think I got that for my 11th or 12th birthday.
Oh, wow. So you were having suicidal thoughts at 12 years old?
I think so. I think I was writing like pretty dark stuff at a very young age.
Did anyone pick up on this? Like your parents, teachers, anybody?
Not really. My parents definitely knew that I wasn't happy and not fitting in, but there wasn't any options. Like, we were so far away from anything. There wasn't any kind of mental health support. The teachers were all people from the town. It was just, we were so isolated. There just wasn't really anything that anyone could do. And as an adult, I can look back on it and realize that my parents were being bullied as well, because they were high school sweethearts. They had me when they were quite young. So they moved out to this middle of fucking nowhere town when they were like 29, I think. And I try and imagine being 29 and moving out there and not fitting in and having all these people treat you like an outsider. And I'm like, okay, so like they actually got bullied as well. So I think it was hard for them to really do anything about it happening to me when it was happening to them as well.
So these thoughts of like, anxiety and suicide, did they continue throughout your teens while you were there?
It definitely was a recurring theme throughout my teens. We moved around quite a lot for Dad's job. So we were out in this town with 50 people from when I was probably, I think, 7 or 8 to about 13. And then we were in another town that had 450 people that was like nearby that I think we were in from, I want to say 12 or 13 to 16. And then I did my final 2 years of high school in another town in like rural South Australia. But I think my social skills were so stunted from not having friends or anything that the bullying just continued wherever I went because I didn't know how to be normal. And also, like, I was always an eccentric kid, which if I had lived in the city, I would have been fine because there would have been other kids that were a little kooky that I could have been friends with. But when you live in such a small, remote area and everyone is the same and it's all very conformist and you're like the weird kid, you don't really have anyone else to vibe with.